Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Clinic Gym Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Satterlee, and I'm here with the amazing, are you French, by the way, Aaron? The amazing Frenchman, Aaron LeBauer. How are you,
Um,
Aaron?
I'm good, Josh. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm not French.
Oh,
Bauer is German for farmer, and the
okay.
low part I think just got added on in New York City when someone came to the United States.
Kind of
So,
dress it up a little bit.
right, must have.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, you went from farmer to like organic first class Whole Foods farmer.
you got it
Yeah,
exactly. And Whole Foods gets my paycheck, so
that's right. Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have you today, Aaron. For those who don't know, Aaron, he's a PT by trade, but really more you kind of help people get into the cash-based healthcare system, right? Instead of like chasing insurance and or your tail,
Yep,
getting the crap kicked out of you and low reimbursements.
you got it. It's how do we get a cash-based practice started? How do we grow it, help it thrive, and scale it so that it's a better option for everyone all around.
Yeah. Now you kind of have an interesting story. I mean, I've kind of stalked you online a little bit, but before you graduated, you saw like 40 people in a day or something.
Yeah, so my first clinical rotation, I saw 43 patients one day, and I was there from I think I had to be there at like 7:30 in the morning, and at like 9:30, 9:45 that night, I was writing notes. I still had a stack of notes to go through. I was like, I can't do this. Like this can't happen. When I get out, like I'm not doing this. So it was kind of crazy.
That's insane. So you're a PT. So this is like, where'd you go to PT school, by the way?
I went to Elon University. We got a physical therapy degree. It's a doctor of physical therapy degree, and it took 3 years. And I've done some other training prior to that. I had a career
Yeah.
as a massage therapist for 6 years before.
Very cool. And so you had that experience and you thought this is, well, luckily, at least you realized early not to fall into that trap, right? Some people don't realize till 15 years in that they are in a trap.
Right. I had my own massage practice, and I went to PT school knowing that I was gonna gain more knowledge and be able to help my patients where I couldn't help them with the training I had as a massage therapist. I was able to help them in ways that other people weren't, but I was hitting like this rev limiter of not knowing, being able to give like a diagnosis, prognosis, and the rehab exercises they need to get better.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I'll do that. And I'll go work as a PT in the hospital or a clinic or something somewhere. And it was that day when I realized, after seeing 43 people, that I was going to have to somehow figure out how to do this on my own, because I wasn't going to be able to do this working for someone else. Because the place I was decently low overhead. There were only a few people in there, but it was just people so packed in, I couldn't do the work that I felt like the patients needed.
Wow. And like, so what, that's great that you had that idea, but like, how did you actually get to the point where because there's a little bit of how would I say this nicely? Your confidence must take a jump, right? Like you have to step off that scary cliff and go, hey, I'm going to actually do this thing right out of
Mm-hmm.
school.
Yeah, it was tough. It was hard. I didn't know it was going to work. Everyone told me it was a crazy idea. It wasn't going to work. It was a bad idea. It was even unethical to not take insurance.
Wow.
People have really poor, understanding of their own value as physical
Yeah.
therapists. I had a few people around me, but my wife and my dad supported me, but they didn't think it was going to work. But the way I looked at it was, people were paying me $85 an hour as a massage therapist to help them when they had been to PT, chiropractic, massage therapy, acupuncture,
Probably had the
surgery,
personal trainer work on them a little bit.
training, et cetera. And I was at that point, the people that found me, I was the only person that was able to touch them where they hurt. Most people hadn't addressed the soft tissue. And most people didn't spend time with them to ask them questions about what was important, what was most important, or even just listen to them. And so I knew, like, if people are paying me $85 an hour, like, why wouldn't they just pay me another $10 an hour now that I'm Dr. LeBauer and I'm a physical therapist?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why wouldn't they? And then they did. And if I was coaching myself, I would have said, Aaron, $95 an hour is way too low to start for a rate for a cash practice.
It's going to take a while to pay off that student loan with that extra
Right.
$10, right?
Right. Well, what I ended up finding, I ended up raising my rates over time in smaller increments that I would advise someone to do today. And I didn't get it's like I got to this point where I was trying to scale my practice, but my rates were so low that I couldn't turn a profit. And
Right.
physical therapy or chiropractic, it's worth more than just the dollar amount or the time we spend with people. It's about what's the result that they really want. Like, what's the thing that they want? Most people aren't even asking them the questions or spending time with them.
Well, that's kind of we talked a little bit before this recording, but that's like your secret sauce, right? Is like your ability to ask the right question. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm going to guess
asking the right questions, spending time. I mean, when's the last time you've been to see your primary care physician and they spent more than 25, 30 minutes with you?
Yeah.
You know,
25.
25. I know you get
15,
taken in.
5.
Like, here's my experience. It's like, okay, so I've got a special physician here who knows me. He's been in my clinic. Like, I go see him, but you know, it's not the typical thing. Even then, it was the nursing assistant came out and never introduced herself to me by name. You walk up to the front desk and they ask for your insurance and date of birth. They never ask for your name. Your name is third if they ask for it.
Yeah.
It's such an impersonal system.
Do they have that little window that they only slide open like a quarter of the way, just in case you're thinking of jumping through it or something? I'm not sure why
they're
do
afraid
that.
you're going to steal a Mars candy bar from behind the desk.
Exactly. Like, ooh, can I take some more of this paperwork where I fill out my address 18 times?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's that. And then it's, okay, if I just sit with you and let you ask me any question you want, that's viable. Now, if I ask you back the right questions, now I can build a tremendous amount of value for what I'm able to do and help them accomplish. And that's it. It's yes, there's some hands-on techniques that I use that I think are really great. There's some, you know, the way I treat patients and do things I think is pretty good. But it's giving people that opportunity to ask me questions, be heard, and for me to ask them the right questions that's the big secret to, you know, to asking for high prices for selling anything.
Well, that's a secret, I'm sure, to having a great marriage too, right? Like, just find out what that other person wants, provide that, and then along the way they probably fill you up pretty well with love and value too, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
So one thing that I really love about what I've seen from you, Aaron, is like there is how would I say this? There is a common methodology or thought process that we need to be overwhelmed by, like all the back end stuff, all the notes and you know, time to fill out pre-auths. And I mean, that's one of the downsides of insurance is not just, hey, I'm going to get low repayments.
Right.
I have to beg and plead on the front side to even see if I can enter into a possible relationship where you're going to screw me on the backside. Right. Like, so, I mean, what it'd be like asking somebody like, hey, can I apply for you to break my heart? And they're like, yeah, well, we'll see how you do, but yeah, sure. Right. It's ridiculous, but you kind of stripped it down. And I remember looking at one of your products, which was like using Google, I don't remember, Google Sheets or.
It's Google Docs as your EMR. Now it's G Suite, you know, as an EMR. It's a inexpensive EMR.
Right. But it was the first time I kind of like looked at it and go, it wasn't just the fact you're like, hey, use Google. It's like it's that question of like, how much of this crap do you really need? Right. Like truly to treat somebody and have decent notes that are defendable. What do you truly need? And it's like, I don't know. And it's like, do you need to spend $300, $500 a month on an EMR? Right. Or like the
only reason I'm spending that much on an EMR is if it washes my car, gives me a bath, scrubs my back. But really, it's if I'm spending $300 on an EMR, it's because they're doing some work for me that I can't do, like scrubbing, filing my notes, and filing claims. Yeah. Like my practice, like I don't need that. Like that adds no value to my life.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty Zen like thought, my man. Like what do you need? It's like, how do you win a fight? It's like the Don, you know, the ninth Don master of Shaolin Temple is like, don't get in fights. That's how you always win.
Right.
Like, whoa. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So how'd you discover that along the way? Because I'm sure everybody around you that was starting their own practice, like, you know, throwing down $500 a month on a EMR and all sorts of other crap, and you just kind of went like super lean.
Yeah. I was doing paper notes for a long time, and a lot longer than most. And people are like, Aaron, when do you have EMR? I'm like, there's no EMR system that fits my needs. You know, there's nothing that integrates with Google Calendar. It's been a few years. Google Calendar. There's nothing that doesn't cost me an arm and a leg. I can't get, you know, online intake I can't find anything that's purely paperless. And where I don't even have to scan anything. And I was interviewing a friend of mine, Urson Religioso.
Yeah, I know Urson. Yeah.
Yeah. So I interviewed him for one of my early webinars, and he was talking to me about how, he's using, Google Docs to do his stuff. And I was like, oh, tell me about that. And then I did that, and I was like, oh, and we talked about it on the web, on the thing. And that's how we came up with this, product that we put together.
Are you using Google Forms as an online fillable?
So
intake?
Urson's using Google Forms as the online fillable. What I did was, at that time, I was like, all right, I can do this, but it was 6 months later when this other product I found called Intake Queue, where they do online intake forms, and it's HIPAA compliant. So I put that together with this. That saved, at the time I didn't have an assistant, so it saved me hours a month to use that. That was worth the $39 I paid. And I put those two things together and created my EMR system. So it cost me $40-something a month. The $10 for the business Google G Suite, because that's the one that HIPAA compliant, and Intake Queue, and I married them together. Now Urson came out and figured out how to use Google fillable forms to do all that stuff, and all that's in there. I still just use this other thing because, it works, and there's no reason to unwork it.
Now, for those people who are like, dude, what you just said there is worth every penny. This is amazing. I got to find this out. Before we go any further, can you throw out your website or how people can get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the G Suite product website, this training is inexpensiveemr.com. You can also find it on my website, which is the aaronlebauer.com website.
So inexpensiveemr.com.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. And then Aaron LeBauer, which I'll throw in the show notes because lots of vowels, only a few consonants in the name Aaron LeBauer, but
that's right.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
Man, this is awesome. So going back to this question thing, I don't know anybody that's listening who's read the book like Motivational Interviewing or the version for healthcare. And I know from our sales training we do with our folks for their gym offering, the first step is well, I guess the first step is shut up. The second step is ask the person about their goals. Like, why do they even consider a gym, or why do they even do that? But you've kind of done that with physical therapy, but it certainly can apply. You must have chiropractors as clients too, right?
Yeah, I've got a few chiros that are in my programs. A good friend of mine here in Greensboro, subletted the space.
Yeah.
One of my spaces next door when we first opened, and he practices very similar to you, I think.
Cool.
And yeah, it's what was the original?
That's all right. I was asking you about asking questions and then
questions. Yes.
Digging into those goals that they give you, not the ones that we want to place on them, right?
So yeah, so here's how I came to this. So I was asking and listening, and I had these great questions, but then for the last 5 years I've been coaching people and coaching other therapists and chiropractors, acupuncturists, a couple of people I'm sitting here going, all right, I need to raise my rates because I'm looking at the profit margins going, it's really not, it needs to be a bigger profit margin for this to be called a business. It was just me self-employed. This was fine. Really, the value is there. Like, it's worth so much more. I need to have a bigger, okay, all right, I got to go up in rates. I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm selling, coaching programs using these strategies. Why can't I use that with physical therapy? So I just kind of flipped things a little bit. So it's about I added some questions, but it's also, instead of selling, 1 hour is $150. It's, you've just told, I've had this conversation with you, and now I can tell you the benefits, what your goals and visions and dreams are, the things you're afraid of happening or want to avoid, and create an offer for you. It's, it's like, look, Miss Jones, it's going to be just $19.98, and I'm going to get you, a customized home self-treatment program. We'll start your treatment today. You'll get a personalized plan of care. We're going to put you on our back to the box program, which is going to allow you to return to, working out at CrossFit 5 days a week without worrying that, you're going to hurt your back and you're not going to be able to play with your babies at home. How does that sound? And it's just like, it's rearranging the value, the order and the value. And it's like, and I was like, well, why can't we and it's selling physical therapy, but I'm not selling physical therapy. Physical therapy is just the way I deliver the results or the transformation people want.
It's like Chipotle, right? Like I walk up and I'm like, well, I want something with like beans and chicken and some peppers and you know, my wife went through the same line, and she ends up with a salad that has chicken on it, and I end up with a burrito, and it's like,
Right.
it was all the same stuff. That the way but I didn't want a salad that day, even though
Yeah.
it was exactly the same ingredients, you know?
Right. Right. You wanted a burrito. And
Yeah.
so I got to know, like, what do you really want? Like, no one wants, you know, more flexion in their spine or their shoulder. No one wants,
I want to increase my cervical rotation by 6.5 degrees to the right.
Right. No one wants the physical therapy, which is, we've had people come like, well, I was told to get the physical therapy. And we're like, you're just like on the wrong planet. You know, they don't want the chiropractic, you know, they don't, it's like people, and people know better what you do.
Those people find you on the Facebooks, right?
Right. On the Facebook. So with I mean, I'll say, like, with chiropractic, it's more of a public awareness, and you guys have, as a profession, have done a better job of people know more of what to expect to come see you. You know, they're going to crack my back. Like,
Yeah.
People think I do post-surgical rehab or hot packs, leg lifts, and ultrasound, and that's it. And I do.
No,
so
you
much
ride exercise bikes too for warm up. I mean,
right,
I don't want to sell you
bike.
short.
You can just come and ride an exercise bike. Like, we don't have, I mean, you know what, man, you wouldn't catch me. Like, I can't even ride a bike in front of a TV when I'm training for a, you know, a bike race where they just race bikes. Like, I can't do that. Can't do that to people. It's, but it allows us to get beyond that. Like, everyone's expectations, find out, what do they want? What do they expect?
Mm-hmm.
What would make them happy? What does success look like for them?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what, if I know what success looks like for you, I can tell you if I can get you that or not. I might deliver it by doing the physical therapy.
So along that, like when you're coaching people, I mean, I don't want you to share the whole deal, but what's the biggest mistake people make? Is it jumping to conclusions?
There are two mistakes. One, it's like assuming that they know what's wrong, or assuming that they know what people want because they haven't asked the right questions. And two, it's being too logical. Right?
Interesting.
Being too logical with the objections of money or time or et cetera. It's like those aren't the objections. It's just we haven't found out what the objection is. It's really easy to say, I need to think about it. I don't have time. It's too expensive. And so thinking that, you look, Miss Jones, it's too expensive. It's, well, you know what? Your copay is $150 a visit, and you've got a $5,000 deductible. And I know if you go anywhere else, you're going to spend more money.
And by the way, you only have $700 of care after that.
Right.
You know, like, is that coverage?
Right. You know, and it's like that. So those are the things, like assuming you know what the people want, and also being too logical and trying to meet the objections. It's an emotional decision, and we have to really dig a little bit to find out what people want.
Do you have don't you have like a training or something on this?
Yeah, so I have I've got a book, like a free book, ebook, that's it's the 5 questions that successful PT clinic owners, you could say successful cash practice owners, successful anyone, but it's what are the questions you need to ask to get people to pay cash for therapy? It's like, to feel comfortable going beyond just what my insurance is going to pay for.
Right.
And these are questions on how you build value for people, so that they're comfortable paying you thousands of dollars.
By the way, for those people listening, like a lot of times I hear people, oh, my patients aren't compliant or something. That, if you're taking insurance, it's usually not a compliance issue. It's usually either your care is not that good, which most people that I talk to, they've dedicated themselves to being great providers. So that's usually not the case, although I'm sure that in 1 or 2 cases that is. Or you haven't built enough value for that person to see why they're coming to you. So even if you're like, well, I'm not yet cash, or I get repaid really well. Like I have a guy in Virginia, one of my clients, and he gets like $141 a visit on average. I'm like, wow. I might take insurance too in that case, you know. But anyways, if they're not compliant or they're missing, or you're getting a ton of no-shows and stuff, it's usually a value issue. So these 5 questions, you think Aaron can help them get to the bottom of that as well? Yeah,
these 5 questions will fix like people not showing up, not valuing their $25, $50 copay. Even my copay this year for specialists is $150. It'll fix having the feeling they have to waive copays.
Yeah.
You know, I have a client who is a PT partner with a chiropractor, and when patients come in for one of them, they work together to treat patients.
Right.
But it's 2 copays. People object to the second copay. And so they're just waiving the second copay. because you can't do one copay for chiropractic and PT at the same time. And it's like, one, you're not supposed to waive copays, and two, it's like, that's another $50. I mean, that could be $100,000 a year that you're just giving away because
you wouldn't walk into Costco and go, I know this TV is $800, but I kind of object to that, so give it to me for $350. You'd be like, right. What are you talking about? There's just a price. Like,
right. It's like a 2-for-1. They're getting a 2-for-1 special and nothing's on sale.
Yeah. So of these 5 questions, so where can they find the 5 questions? Number one.
So
I want to go into, can you take us into one?
Yeah, I'll take you into my favorite one. cashptmarketing.com/5-questions. I'll send you the link. cashptmarketing.com.
Okay.
/5-questions.
Yeah, send that to me and I'll try and throw it in the show notes, buddy.
Yeah. But the best one, it's and I didn't come up with this, but this is the Dan Kennedy question, right?
So
Not Dan Kennedy. No, sorry.
Sullivan. Dan
Sullivan question. You got Dan Kennedy has some amazing questions himself. Dan Sullivan
but
question.
You stole this one from a different guy.
I stole this one from a different guy. And but it's great. But here's what it does is it takes the patient into the future.
Okay.
From a future point at which they're feeling better, it has them look back over time at what has happened. So we're time traveling them forward, time traveling them backwards. And then we're asking them basically, what does success look like for you? So it's, Mrs. Jones, let's say we're having this question a year from now.
Okay.
Looking back over that year, what has to happen in your life for you to feel happy with your results or satisfied with your progress? Or, like working together with us has been the best decision you've ever made. And then what you're going to get is like, it opens up the book to them to tell you what they're expecting success to look like. And you follow it up with, okay, so I would be skiing 5 days a week or, working out 5 days a week. Okay, well, why is that so? That's not good enough though. It's, why is that so important? Why is that so important to you? What does that mean to you? It's like the follow-up questions really dig. And I tell my therapists and therapists I train, it's like, if you can get them to, like ask for a tissue or almost feel like they're getting that emotional, like surge, it's like, now we've got the right question. We've got the right answer. It's like that thing that means so much to you that it's going to almost make you cry or, get the emotion. Like, that's the thing. Okay, look, all right, there it is. You need to work out 5 days a week so you can go home at the end of the day and feel calm and collected and not frustrated, and so you don't yell at your kids. I can help you do that.
So for those people listening going, oh yeah, I've heard this Dan Sullivan, blah, 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 or like a million people tell me to ask questions. Can you take us back to a time like, so let's go time travel in reverse to when you started asking this question and were blown away by what you heard from that person in front of you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So I'll go first. I'll let you kind of stew on it. Cause I've asked people this, like basically what is, and so I had this guy in my office and this is like the classic, how do I say this? High school football player that's now 60 to 62 years old and brags a little bit about how, he was a badass. But now he's got he's a supervisor in construction. He's got 60 pounds on him that he doesn't need. Knees are sore, back is sore, a few injuries. And this guy that I can specifically remember, his wife basically forced him to come in. He wouldn't have come in on his own, right? So she forced him to come in.
Hardest people to convince to stay.
They are they're also like, when you do convert them, they're like your number one fan, but up to that point, it's like they have so much momentum. Like, you got to get the rock all the way up the hill and then it'll tip over the other side.
Right.
So anyway, so he's like, yeah, my back hurts. Okay. Tell me about it. It just hurts. I just don't want it to hurt. My wife, sick of me complaining, blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right, well, so I asked him this question, like, what is success? Like, if we're looking at this 2 years from now, what do you want to be doing that makes you think you can actually do this? And he's looking at me and he kind of like gets this weird look on his face. I'm like, I don't care what your answer is, like just anything, I'll help you get there. And he's like, I mean, if I could run a 5K in 2 years, I've always wanted to run. And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't think anybody's more than 4 months away from a 5K, for God's sakes, like 2 years to run a fucking 5K. Excuse my language, but, and And I'm like, all right. And I, tried not to laugh. And I was like, I think we can do that. And, I mean, let's say he came in for 5 weeks. At the end of the 5 weeks, things were so different because he just had no care up to that point. Right. So things were so different. End up convincing him to sign up for a 5K that would have been, it was just under the 6-month mark of our first appointment,
Wow.
And he walked it. He didn't run the whole thing, does a second one 2 months later, runs the whole thing, comes in the office to show off his medal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you've done some races, I'm going to guess. You look like a pretty fit guy. Like the medal they give, like they buy in bulk kind of thing, like the thin and with the cheesy ribbon. He comes in my office to show me, just no appointment, just wants to show it. It's like, wow. Yeah. But to him, that was the thing. But looking at this guy, I never would have guessed he ever wanted to run.
Right.
Ever, And it was like, what? And plus, his expectations are so low. I was like, oh, my God, we're going to hit a home run with this guy.
Yeah.
So smash cut, 14 months after our first appointment, he ran the Las Vegas Rock and Roll Marathon. He didn't run the whole thing, but walked it, but did a full marathon. And here he was thinking, oh, a 5K is if I could do that in 2 years, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And that guy sent in, no kidding, probably 8 or 10 people over the next year. Cause like, oh yeah, he can do anything. And I'm thinking, well, dude, you kind of set the bar low here.
I know. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I don't have anything that'll bring to that, but here's what I'll add is sometimes people are so surprised that I'll ask this question and other questions. They don't know how to answer.
Mm-hmm.
They get to the point where it's like, and I've realized it's my job to help them to the answer. Not to give it to them, but to help them to it, because they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, look, this is more than just physical therapy. Like I can help you with more than just helping you get rid of the pain. Like people's like, oh, it just hurts, but it's okay. Well, what is the pain? Because some people are just fixated on the fact that they're in pain. It's like, well, what is the pain keeping you from doing? What is the pain? Oh, well, I can do everything. Okay. Well, what? And then it's, what are you afraid of missing out on if you don't do anything about it today? And it's like, there's these questions that we have to ask the right question for people to get, oh, I get what you mean. So we had a patient who I asked this question to, and she was, she didn't get it at first. And I asked her, and I was like, look, I'm just trying to figure out, like, it's bigger than the fact that your leg hurts because you broke it in 4 places and it's been 2 years since the car accident. She was told not to go. I mean, she had been a patient of ours at some point, like 5 or 6 years prior, not, only stick to traditional thing because of the case and the motor MVA thing. And you shouldn't do anything that seemed like off the book. Well, she wasn't getting any better. She couldn't do anything around her house. This accident was terrible. Like, she got a brain injury, not only multiple fractures in her leg, brain injury, the passenger had a brain injury. It messed with her relationship. I mean, all this stuff wasn't happening.
Wow.
So I figured out what is it that she wanted. She wanted to be able to finish the home project that her and her husband were working on that got stalled out 2.5 years ago because of this accident.
Wow.
Well, within 6 weeks, she was in so much pain she couldn't sit or stand or walk for more than 23 minutes. Within like 4 to 6 weeks, I think it was in a few weeks she was back working, but in 4 to 6 weeks she had actually made progress and was like, I think I'm going to be able to finish this on my own.
Wow.
I'm not a miracle worker, but it's giving someone permission to go back and do this thing that her body was probably physically capable of doing some of this all along, but it's identifying what it is that's going to create that satisfaction that she was in by the time she was finished her care with us. Like, I didn't finish her care. One of my other therapists did, but this project was complete, and it was a pretty major self-home renovation. I don't know the extent of it, but it was enough that she couldn't do it by herself. Her father wasn't there to help her. Her spouse was no longer there to help her. And we were able to help her do that. And that's what created meaning. I mean, just, getting more range of motion in her ankle and being able to run, like, was nowhere close to her goal or the thing that.
Right. Yeah. That must be incredibly fulfilling for her to complete it,
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you've jogged my memories, now I have to think about it. It's like, that's incredibly fulfilling for me to help someone achieve that level
Sure.
of change in their life.
Real quick, before we get back to our interview, I want to make sure that you know our website, clinicgymhybrid.com, and you know that we offer a series of high-impact lessons, 42 lessons, in fact, in our Accelerator Lite program. And the goal of that is to get you up and running and get that first few $1,000s of recurring revenue from memberships in your gym, all right? So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and head over to clinicgymhybrid.com. Again, that's clinicgymhybrid.com, and we will get you set up there with our Accelerator program. All right? And now let's get back to our interview. Thanks. That's awesome. So once again, where can people find these questions so they can kind of start digging into some of this deeper stuff?
Yeah, you can always go to my website, aaronlebauer.com, and we'll have it on there. Directly, you can go to cashptmarketing.com/5-questions.
Okay.
And I'll send you the link so you can put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, be great. Yeah, it's funny because when you do provide that value or create that value in the situation, I think there's a lot of people who are hesitant or scared of, there's fear around asking for cash price. But for some reason saying, hey, it's 55, but you can use your insurance, is a lot different than saying it's 50, but you got to pay cash, So a lot of people kind of hide, and I'm not trying to beat anybody up about it, but, maybe you can talk about, for those people who are thinking they need to move to a cash model, what's a common, or what's a success story you've had to kind of, like a client you've had that was scared to move off that system and then went to the cash model and now is thriving?
Oh, it's early on. I helped a couple do this. Yeah. And I remember it was like, well, how do we do it? And I was like, well, do you know what it costs for you to run your clinic per hour per visit? And they came up with their number. I'm like, okay, what's your average reimbursement? And it was lower than that. Well, like, I don't need any more motivation to do it,
Yeah.
And it was a combination of PT and nutrition, and it's okay. So it's what people are most scared of happening. I worked with a woman more recently who, her cash rate is $75. I think maybe her average reimbursement's around that, but she's got some, I don't know which healthcare plan. I'll throw all of them under the bus. I just don't know which one to throw under the bus. Someone's paying her $38 no matter what.
Yeah. There's somebody serving a poop sandwich.
Right.
Which one it is, I can't remember.
Right. Which one do you want to step on?
Right.
The one that's got like the nice organic recycled paper bag around it, or the one with the plastic, cheap Ziploc bag that doesn't even work. Neither one. But it's like, but the problem here is that it's like you're bending over backwards for some of these people that aren't reimbursing you enough to stay in business. The cash price is only 75. It's like, well, something's got to change, and everyone's afraid of upsetting their customers. Like, no one wants to upset people. I think the problem is that I know what you pay and I'm treating you. Okay. And that puts me in a weird place because I'm not the one and you're not the one making this agreement. It's Jennifer in Iowa who's just, whether you get paid or not. And
right.
So if we remove that out of the equation, then that's the big conflict of interest. And then we can figure out, like, what does it cost me? So as soon as the people I've worked with get rid of the lowest paying contracts, it frees up their time to say, look, I don't have to go chasing $35 for 6 months, or look, they're going to pay me $64, or the copay's $50. So I got to go through all this work to collect an extra $14. And most people are like, I don't have enough time to do that. But that's hundreds of thousands of dollars off the table. And then if we look at the cash price, you get yes, it's a little bit more. But if we're spending more time and those people are more valued at $75, it's depending on how long you do. But if it's an hour, even a half hour, $75 is not enough. In an hour, it's way too low but no one wants to upset people. But once you get beyond the fear that people are going to get upset because you're charging them a fair price, it's like, all we really got to do is go to dentists. Anytime you go get a filling and an x-ray, you're out $300, and right. They don't say, I'm sorry at all. No one says anything. Right.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a great, amazing strength coach named Anthony Renna, and he's got this great podcast, the Strength Coach podcast or something. But I interviewed him, and he said something that's always stuck to me. And I brought it up multiple times on the show, but he said, when you're working with clients, he works in an all cash business, right? Personal training. But he's like, if you charge them too little, like if you sign them up early on in your career, but you're charging them too little, he said, you don't realize it, but you begin to resent them. Like the fact that they're filling up your 6 a.m. slot, or they're coming in, making you come in at 5 a.m. And he's like, you got to be careful, because if you don't feel like you're getting the full value of that hour, you're going to resent the client, the very person you should serve. Right. And he said, conversely, the second that you tell, I know, Aaron, I know it used to be $100, but now it's $120 an hour. And the second that you agree to that rate, like the customer agrees to that rate, everybody that Anthony says, everybody I've ever met steps up to the plate. They're like, oh crap, you said yes. Oh, well, instead of $120 an hour trainer, I'm going to act like $180 an hour trainer. They're going to earn way more than that money. But, there's a point where like somebody comes in for like, oh, God dang it. The Mrs. Jones is a stupid Cigna client. Like, oh man, I'm always chasing stupid Cigna. Now you take it out on Mrs. Jones about the relationship with Cigna, and then it's a spiral, because she feels that, she can't put her finger on it, but it's just not comfortable. And then you're not getting referrals, and your place is starting to become stagnant, and then you're chasing the money. You're becoming desperate for the money. And I don't know.
100%. That's one of the big reasons I couldn't do it, because I knew I'm treating the patients and I know what they're paying. Yeah. And if I'm having trouble with collecting the pay $75, I'm not going to treat Mrs. Jones like 150. I'm going to treat her like 75 minus all the frustration and time it's taking me. So she might get a $20 service.
Or you just get exasperated on Friday and you're just like, forget it. I'll do her notes next week. And then you never submit because it's such a pain in the butt. And then you're out hundreds of thousands of dollars, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, that's the big problem, is that someone else's decision-making gets in our way of doing what's right for patients. Right. And we end up like our judgment gets clouded, our notes get clouded. It's like our clinical decision-making. It's like, if I don't get much from her, it's like, well, I'll schedule it at a different time that's not convenient. Maybe I don't need to see her that often, but if I know someone's coming in, their insurance pays $141 an hour, they're sure getting a lot of treatment, maybe twice a week.
Yeah.
Like, why should they be different? Like, why should my decision-making be influenced by something else? And that's why
I remember reading a book. I can't remember if it's How Doctors Think, or I think it's How Doctors Think. And it said that for primary care, your diagnosis in cardiology, if I remember this right, has more, they can predict it by where the doctor went to school.
Yeah.
So like if you went to Mayo Clinic, it's it's a cardiac, it's cardiac system. And then if you went to Cleveland, it's a neuro issue affecting the heart. And if you went to MD Anderson, it's a tumor on the heart until proven otherwise. Yep. I bet you go to a busy insurance-based clinic. If you went to an insurance clinic, certainly one that's like single, solo operator, owner operator kind of deal, like you were early on, looking at the care plans, I bet you could be fairly accurate with, this is United, Cigna. Right. Oh, this person's definitely cash. Like it just, and it's that, then we're not providing healthcare.
Right. No, we're not. And, the study you mentioned there's studies about that for frequency of MRIs, frequency of spinal surgery, frequency of hysterectomies that show that the biggest predictor is not your signs and symptoms, but your zip code. I agree.
Scary, man.
Yeah, it is scary. It is scary. And I think if we ran the numbers from Medicare, we'd find, for different things, I think because they have all the numbers, we find practice patterns, just like that, all over the board. I worked in clinics as a student where, if you had this insurance, like you could tack on an extra half hour if you wanted to, because the insurance would pay.
Right. Yeah. And then people start abusing that because it's the only freedom we get kind of deal,
Right.
So basically what you're doing with Aaron LeBauer Consulting is saving the world from itself. That's it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to save it, 100 million people at a time.
Right. You're just Luke Skywalker. And you're trying to find the center of the Death Star.
Right. I'm tired of bashing my head against the wall by myself, and I need to do it with some other people, and maybe we'll knock the wall down.
There you go. And, share the soreness of your cranium between multiple people.
Right. Right.
Awesome. Well, listen, Aaron, I really appreciate the time today. For those, so we've talked about a few places that people can find you, but the nexus of it is aaronlebauer.com, right?
aaronlebauer.com. I'm on Instagram at Aaron LeBauer, Facebook /Aaron LeBauer. I've got a free Facebook group. It's called the Cash PT Nation. We've got almost 4,500 people in it right now.
Nice.
Free
And
group.
it's okay for Kairos to be in there?
Oh, absolutely. If you're interested in the cash model and you don't want to spam us with, other stuff, absolutely welcome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, this has been a slice of heaven. I appreciate it. Sounds like you are saving the world, brother, and we totally can get behind that. So I hope some of my listeners kind of look you up. And any last final words you want to share with anybody?
Yes. The only way you're going to make it happen is by taking action. Like you got action. You got to take action on your ideas.
That is the truth, Ruth. Man, I'll tell you, like, not to extend this any longer, but when you're scared, by the way, action has a very strange way of beating back the dragons. That's when you are scared, like there's been a few times in my life where I've been scared shitless in practice, like about a diagnosis or payroll or whatever, and get down and get busy. And it's amazing how much confidence that'll bring you in just a couple hours of getting some stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Josh, this has been, man, thank you. These have been great questions, great conversation. I really appreciate you inviting me on your show.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you. And on behalf of Dr. Aaron LeBauer with LeBauer Consulting, this is Dr. Josh Satterlee saying, go out there, maximize your license, and live the life you dream of. Thanks, Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Josh.
Hey, I hope that was a great interview and you enjoyed it, took lots of notes, and are able to take some of that information and apply it to your future clinic. If you're interested in getting started with the Clinic Gym Hybrid model, then head over to clinicgymhybrid.com where you can find resources, including our accelerator program. That accelerator program lays out step-by-step the 42 pieces you need to start your own hybrid facility. Hope to see you there, and feel free to ask me any questions via email.